Joined now by Nick Coffey from Sports Talk 790 in Louisville. Every day, 3 to 6 p.m. For those of you that are down that way, make sure you tune him in. Been in that market for quite a while. Nick, thanks a lot for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I thought we'd get the Cards and the Hoosiers in this matchup today, but I was not expecting it to be coming off of impressive victory, especially if you're going to compare Louisville to what we've seen under Kenny Payne from start till now. That was their best performance, no doubt, yesterday against Texas, but a heartbreaker for sure. And it's just the way things have gone. I wasn't so surprised to see that shot go in.
Yeah, that's sounds like Indiana football logic right there. A lot of Indiana football fans. That's exactly what happened to them. They had a late lead against Michigan State on Saturday, and of course they gave that lead up. Same thing that happened to them against Illinois. But the Cardinals, how in the world does a team go from losing an exhibition to Kentucky Wesleyan to doing what they did yesterday? That I watched that entire game, and I'm like, I was waiting for the separation to happen, and it just didn't. Not only did it not, Louisville kept putting it to them, taking the lead back. It was a back and forth game, and I thought for sure they were going to win that damn thing.
Yeah, I think, I'd be a liar to say that I expected it to be that close towards the end, but I knew that Texas was going to want to play at a style that wouldn't benefit Louisville more so than Texas necessarily, but I think it would be beneficial to the way these players want to play. Not a whole lot of structure, and I don't mean to discredit either two coaches here when I say this, but it was kind of just like a run and gun, kind of like a pickup game. And Louisville was making tough shots. They were making tough shots. Louisville was as physical as I've seen them against anybody, and you got to consider Texas has a lot of talent. So I wish I had the answer as to how they can lose those games to teams you've never heard of and then come close against Texas. I think a lot of teams realize, hey, Louisville's there for the getting. If we slow it down and we make them really work defensively through the shot clock, we make them just try to, dare them to kind of beat us one-on-one. They'll be out of control, and other teams can do that. So it's encouraging, no doubt. But I actually think from start to finish of the Kenny Payne era, he's not had a loaded roster that is considered to be one of Louisville's best. But there's just no scenario they should be as bad as they've been, and I'm talking both last year and this year. So yesterday, again, it's encouraging, but I think it's also kind of a tell that, hey, I mean, if you can get that kind of result from these guys, how the heck is this team, so bad in these last couple of years?
Yeah, it was shocking to see, but it doesn't matter. Like sometimes things come together, I guess, when they finally come together, and that seems kind of like is what's happening. Louisville looked extremely good against the number 15 Texas team that is now 4-0, but Louisville now 2-2 with a chance of leaving New York with a winning record, which would be something they haven't had for quite some time.
Yeah, and I'm totally encouraged by what happened against Texas, and understand Indiana took a tough loss yesterday. And look, Louisville can win this game. I think Louisville's had the ability to beat a lot of teams they've lost to, but I want to see if they can come out for the second straight day and keep that energy, keep that intensity. Obviously, Texas has a lot of talent, but so does Indiana. I think Indiana has some guys kind of still learning what their role is going to be throughout the early stages of this season. But it should be a good game, no doubt. But if I'm being honest, I still, I'm going to trust the majority of the games I've seen under Kenny Payne rather than just basing it off of what we saw yesterday. But hey, maybe they can keep some momentum, and if they can get out of there going 1-1, it would be the most perplexing 3-2 record I can think of. But hey, 3-2 is better than 0-5, which I don't think was off the table once they got the season started with that loss to Kentucky Wesleyan.
Well, I haven't seen a spread yet, and I'm sure there is one, but I would be shocked if it's Indiana. It can't be by much. What
I believe it's Indiana 7.5. At least when I first looked at it.
Now, see, to me, from what I saw yesterday, there is no way in hell I'm taking the 7. I'll take the 7.5 in Louisville on that bet. Indiana has not looked good in all year, even against the wins that they've had. Their offense has had no cohesion. In Mackenzie Mbako, the big 5-star recruit, has just not had this breakout game yet. Like Sky Clark playing incredibly well for Louisville yesterday. Indiana is not hitting the three. They're not even taking the three, and they are giving them up in droves. So I'm sure Louisville will try to feast on that, as most teams have. Indiana has given up. They've been outscored by 90 points, Nick, already this year, just behind the arc.
Yeah, that is one of the wildest stats I've seen so far in college basketball, just how many threes they've given up and how little they've made and even taken, as you've mentioned there. So, look, Indiana's still putting it together. They've got a lot of new pieces, and they're really replacing a guy that was sort of their program, their franchise for a long time, in Trace Jackson Davis. I still think the two most talented players in this game will probably be Malik Renew and Khalil Ware. I know, again, those guys are in that group as well in regards to still kind of putting it together. But, what you saw yesterday from Louisville, Jim, I'm telling you, man, it was not anything like we've seen for the last 2 years. So if they can keep doing it, great. But, maybe I'm just more programmed to, to be on the safe side and not get my hopes up. But I still think Indiana has the edge in talent. And I guess I'll ask you this, with that odd statistic in regards to three-point shooting, is it just not having guys that can knock it down? Is it just kind of a random early stat because you've only played, 4 games or so? Because I can't imagine Mike Woodson went into this season, thinking that his team would be this, this big of a disadvantage from behind the three-point line.
I think it's a combination of both. Mackenzie Mbako, I've been told by guys that I trust, Todd Leary being one of those, that this dude can shoot the ball. I mean, really shoot it. And I don't know if it's because his mind is so much on his defensive responsibilities, because if you're not playing defense, Mike Woodson puts your butt on the bench, as he did with Mackenzie Mbako. And one of their better three-point shooters so far has been Khalil Ware. Their big men have probably been the best three-point threat. Trey Galloway had a nice average last year, but that was on a small sample size. So he's not putting in the threes. CJ Gunn is someone off the bench that they had hoped to do that. He is not there yet. And, of course, the point guard, Xavier Johnson, is hit and miss as well. So, no, I think that they don't have that guy yet. Mackenzie Mbako was expected to be that guy, and it's not there. But they're not taking that many as well. And it's just amazing the lack of perimeter defense. Yesterday it started out better than it has been, but it's been tough. And I just don't think that they have the people that are confident to take and hit that shot right now. And they like to go through the paint with, you've got Khalil Ware and you've got Malik Renew, who can do some damage, especially together. Khalil Ware yesterday kind of disappeared. He was oddly 2 of 10. Here's an odd stat for you. The 7-footer was 2 of 10 from the field. Both of his makes were from behind the arc.
That's another odd stat here early on. I think from a guard's perspective in this game, I think Louisville's got some decent talent at that position. I mean, I really like the young kid Tyler Johnson, who has been kind of a spark plug for him. I know he comes off the bench, and I know both are probably considered lead guards, but Sky Clark and Tyler Johnson together on the floor, you just seem to have – there's more playmaking ability out there. So maybe that's where Louisville could have the edge here. I mean, I know obviously UConn is a much different test for the Hoosiers than Louisville will be today. But guard play was pretty impressive yesterday against Texas for Louisville. So, it's not that I've ever thought that these guys don't have the talent and ability, that we just not actually seen them go out there and do it. But, I would say from the Indiana perspective in regards to the three-point shooting, that's something I'm definitely going to be watching today. I'd be more concerned with the fact that they're not even taking those shots. I mean, I think that more so speaks to your point that they really don't believe they have guys that can just comfortably take those shots.
And not only that, they're getting, although they have Khalil Ware and Malik Renew playing really well, I think that also takes them away from the basket a lot. And Indiana's getting killed on the boards. It was 44 to 21 or 2 yesterday. So that's a crazy stat. But they also were out rebounded by Wright State, which I don't get that. I mean, I remember playing rec ball or whatever. Man, that ball goes up, you're just crashing. These guys don't crash. They don't seem. It's just weird to watch this team, because I'm not sure what it is that they do well yet. It's not been seen on the defensive side. Louisville definitely, to me, has an advantage at guard. They're much more athletic. You've got Sky Clark. You've got better shooters. So I don't know how that will relate to the paint area if Indiana can make up that deficit, but I give Louisville the edge at the guards without question.
Yeah, and I mean, I would imagine that if Louisville wants to get this in an up and down game, maybe not a track meet necessarily, but just play at a faster pace, I feel like that's probably what Indiana wants to do as well, given their personnel.
Absolutely, they're a much better team when they're in transition. There's no question. Their half court defense has just been kind of messy.
Yeah, I feel like maybe one of the key points for both of these coaches today is, obviously you got to pick and choose your spots when you can score in transition, when you can get a breakout. But maybe making these teams do something in the half court is at this point both teams' weakness right now.
Yeah, ironically too, Mike Woodson had wanted to get this game set up, and Kenny Payne said, "No, I'm not. My program's young, and which made sense, and I want to get it going first." And well, it's like the NCAA; they took care of that for you. But this would be a big win for Louisville. Not that Louisville, and I don't want to act like Louisville is not what they are. They're a program of stature, but they, as Indiana did at one point years ago, they're going through a dip of the program, but it was definitely on the rise, and we'll be coming back. But this would be a huge win because of where it is, who it's over, kind of a rivalry type thing. And it would just, and how it's been going for Louisville. So this would be, to me, a big win, maybe the biggest win in a few years.
I think it'd be huge, easily the biggest win they've had in 3 years, and it would tell the fans, and I guess it would tell the team too, that hey, we know that this team, they're not probably going to be putting together a run that gets them to the Final Four, or even the NCAA tournament maybe, but they are capable of being a lot better than what we've seen. And obviously, it's one thing for the fans to know that, but I think these players, yesterday, I'm sure it was, being that competitive was probably something that should help them. But also, man, the way they lost, that was painful. So I actually think today is not only a big opportunity, but I feel like if you come up short, or let's just say you revert back, that's got to be crushing, knowing that you're just simply not putting together the performances that you're capable of. So it'll be tough for them to get a victory. I think the spread is spot on where it is. But no, you're right. This would be a big win this would be the biggest win of Kenny Payne's career, and it's not even close. I'm not even sure what the comparison would be, but what it could do as far as springboarding you for the rest of the year is monumental. And it's certainly not something anybody would have discussed on the Louisville side if you watch this team at any point against the exhibition opponents. The near loss to UMBC, they were down 22 in the second half to Chattanooga. So to see what they saw yesterday, I hope today's game is one where they come out with confidence, knowing they've got the ability to get what would be a huge win. It's just, I do kind of worry the psychological impact of these last 2 years for players. And a lot of these guys are somewhat new to this roster because they were brought in via the portal, and Kenny wanted to just completely overhaul the roster. But if you go up there and you come away 0-2, I don't think anybody'd be hugely shocked, but just to know that you could have won, and you've had such a bad couple of years at it. I think today's huge for a variety of reasons, not just because it would be a big win, but I think it could kind of swing you in a couple of different directions.
Especially recruiting. I think it would be huge for recruiting, national stage, all of that stuff. Maybe not so good for Indiana, but it would be huge for recruiting. Watching Sky Clark out there do that, those other recruits. He's the guy that bounced around before he finally landed at Louisville. But man, I'm sure they are more than happy to have him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I look at this as a chance for Kenny Payne and his staff to, I still think a win today wouldn't make it to where they can just tell everybody to shut the heck up and they were wrong, because I still think there's just some inexcusable issues they've had up to this point. But this could at least get people to kind of take a deep breath. And you're right. It would be on a huge stage, right? It's November. Typically a lot of attention is on college football and the NFL this time of year. But when you've got feast week, as they call it, daytime games during the day of Thanksgiving week, there'll be more attention on it. And it's huge. And, I think we've known that the opportunity was there for both of these games. No matter who Louisville would have played today, this was going to be 2 days of, getting a chance to play on a national stage. more so than you do when you're playing on a stream only against, Chattanooga. But, at least now we're going in with the, I guess, realization that, hey, they may mess around and win. I mean, I hate to be so dejected about Louisville basketball, but I mean, you're right. It's a program that has a lot of tradition, a lot of pride. And it's just, sometimes I get ready for a show, whether it be a post-game show or my daily show, and think like, are we really doing this? Am I really talking Louisville basketball when they are in the midst of what I hope would be the worst thing they ever go through as a program? But with all that said, yesterday was was something. It was a breath of fresh air just to see those guys out there competing, having fun. And to your point, you got to see that these guys do have some talent. Scott Clark, Trey White, the transfer from USC. I mean, those are guys that I think a lot of teams would like to have on their roster.